cranial nerve nuclei. But I believe the structures of the midbrain, pons and medulla you couldn't read because of your exam ahead. It was very close. So let me see whether we can get another revision for those structures. Midbrain, pons has been taught by another teacher. All right. Now, as far I have taught, that you can remember that there is the neural tube with the ependymal layer, at first singular columnar layer, then it becomes pseudo-stratified layer, then it proliferates. This is the ependymal layer lining the cavities of the brain. That is the lateral ventricle, third ventricle, aqueduct of Sylvius and the fourth ventricle. Right. Next, beyond the ependymal layer, there is the mantle layer that gives rise to the neuroblast and spongioblast. Neuroblast gives rise to neurons and spongioblast gives to oligodendrocytes. You know the myelination of central nervous system is done by oligodendrocytes and for the peripheral nerve by the Schwann cells. This comes as a MCQ. You will get this MCQ. Alright. Now what should be followed? That we have seen for the cortex, cerebral cortex and cerebellar cortex, the mantle layer that gives rise to the grey matter, it moves towards the marginal layer that gives rise to the white matter. The mantle layer that gives rise to the grey matter that migrates to occupy the position of the marginal layer that gives rise to the white fiber. So in cerebral cortex and cerebellar cortex, we see the grey matter outside and the white matter inside. Deep core of cerebral cortex as well as the cerebellar cortex. Right? This part you can remember. Now you see how the structures this oval brain cavity becomes rhomboid shape due to formation of a sulcus at the lateral aspect. This is called sulcus limitans. This is called sulcus limitans. After the formation, sulcus limitans is oriented laterally, but it is actually oriented longitudinally. Got my point? This is like this. This one is the sulcus limitans, this one is the sulcus on both sides, but it is running vertically downwards. Got my point? Longitudinal orientation. Now, the alar lamina is filled with the sensory nucleus and the basal lamina with the motor nuclei. This is the basic concept of the cranial nerve nuclei. Alright, I will name them one by one, which can be exemplified by the spinal cord transection. The ventral one is the motor nerve and the dorsal one is the sensory nerve from the sensory nucleus. Right? What this one is called and what this one is called. Etake ki bole? Etake ki bole? What this one is called and what this one is called. This one is anteromedian sulcus. Anteromedian sulcus, where the anterior spinal artery remains. And this one is the posteromedian septum, which is an ependymal structure. Which is an posteromedian septum is the ependymal structure. Alright. There is the passage of anterior spinal artery here. This is the passage of anterior spinal artery. Alright. Let us ponder upon what are the nerve nuclei in the alar and basal lamina. Later on, after its formation of sulcus terminal, you will see so the superior angle of the diamond-shaped brain cavity is stretched outwards like this, so that the upper part forms the root plate and the lower part from the basal and alar laminae. That is, alar laminae comes downward. This is alar lamina and this is the basal lamina. Now here is the sulcus limitans. This one is the sulcus limitans for this structure. So this is the cavity of brain with root plate, and this one is the rhombic lip. The rhombic lip fuses to midline, forming the vermis of cerebellum, and on either side there is the formation of the rudiment of the cerebellum. The rhombic lip fuses with each other, forming the vermis of the cerebellum, and on either side the structure develops is the rudiment of cerebellum. Got it? Now you see what is the, after the folding, what is the structure of the brain. Now look at this diagram. Here you can see the lateral vesicle. There is evaginating out from the cerebrum, giving rise to the lateral ventricle, whose roof, on this roof there is choroid plexus of lateral ventricle. This is choroid plexus, and on either side there is developing thalamus. All right. Below the thalamus, above the thalamus, you will see the optic disc, which is a part of the optic disc and optic cup, which is the part of the diencephalon. All right. And below this, there is the midbrain. This is the pineal gland, this is the superior colliculus, and this is the inferior colliculus, right? And within the duct, within this is the aqueduct of, this is aqueduct of Sylvia, right? Through the midbrain. And in the pons and medulla, the pons plus cerebellum is called the metencephalon, and the medulla of longer type is called the myelencephalon. This is this part, and this is from this part. All right. Then it is continued as the spinal cord. Understood? Or is there any problem? This is the fourth ventricle, this is the cerebellar rudiment, and this is the developing vermis. So you know the structure, where from it coming and what is its position, isn't it? All right. This is the fourth ventricle cavity, and the roof plate is very thin in case of fourth ventricle. All right. I am not showing you the floor of the fourth ventricle, because at this level you will not understand what is the superior medullary velum, what is medullary stria, what is vagal triangle, what is area prostema. You have not read these things, so you will not be able to understand. Now, Now you see in the motor column, there is somatic AC means somatic efferent column first. Alright, these are ventral. So hypoglossal nerve that supplies the muscles of tongue is represented by the somatic efferent column. Next is the branchial efferent column. Branchial efferent column means the nerve which supplies the developments of the third branchial arches. Here the nerve 9, 10th and 11th nucleus comes from the nucleus ambiguus and it supplies the third, fourth and sixth arches, development from the third, fourth and sixth arches. So somatic efferent, hypoglossal nerve, branchial efferent, that is the nucleus ambiguus with the 9th, 10th and 11th nerve. Then the general somatic efferent, GSE. This is the general somatic efferent. This is the dorsal nucleus of vagus plus inferior salivatory nucleus of glossopharyngeal nerve that is going to supply the parotid gland. So the general somatic efferent is the dorsal nucleus of vagus, that is motor nucleus, and plus the inferior salivatory nucleus that goes to supply the parotid gland. Right? Now come to the sensory. This is the motor. This is the motor part. Now see the sensory part. Number one, this one is the general visceral afferent. Next is the spatial visceral afferent. Next is the general somatic afferent. Then is the spatial somatic afferent. So it ended in the motor column, ended in the general somatic efferent. Then you will see the general visceral efferent, both represented by the dorsal nucleus of vagus. This is also represented by dorsal nucleus of vagus. So where does the dorsal nucleus of vagus stand? It is a mixed nucleus. Both motor and sensory fibers are coming out of it. Where stands the dorsal nucleus? It is a mixed nucleus where from both the general somatic efferent fiber, that is the motor fiber, and general visceral afferent fiber, that is the sensory fiber, both comes out from the dorsal nucleus of vagus. Now the spatial visceral afferent is the taste sensation. It is for the taste sensation that comes from the nucleus of tractus solitarius. So taste sensation is converging upon nucleus of tractus solitarius. Right? Now the general somatic afferent. General somatic afferent means the nerve which is carrying sensation from your face, your head, that is the spinal nucleus of trigeminal nerve. Spinal nucleus of trigeminal nerve. Right? So the general somatic afferent means from the soma, that is the body muscles, from which the trigeminal nerve is taking sensation, that is your scalp and your face, coming from the spinal, that is converging upon spinal nucleus of trigeminal nerve. Now the spatial somatic afferent means hearing and equilibrium. Spatial somatic afferent means hearing, trigeminal माने fifth nerve, अच्छा, hearing and equilibrium. By eighth nerve, vestibulocochlear nerve. Spatial somatic afferent means it is the nerve for hearing and equilibrium, maintenance of balance, which is subserved by the eighth nerve coming from the spatial somatic afferent. Okay. All right. Up to this part must be remembered. You will be always asked in which column what is remaining. So medial most is the when this stretches out, when this will stretch it out. So basal lamina take the ventral most part and the alar lamina will take the lateral part. Got my point? When this stretches out with thin roof plate, there will be basal lamina ventrally and alar lamina laterally. So there will be migration of this nucleus, as we see in case of nucleus of ambiguus, that migrates to the more ventrolateral position. What I have said, the migration of nucleus ambiguus to the more ventrolateral side due to increase in its axonal fiber. All right, migration of nucleus ambiguus to the ventrolateral side due to increase in its axonal fiber. This is called neurobiotaxis. Another example of neurobiotaxis you will be able to see in case of the motor neuron of the facial nerve. This winds round the vestibular nucleus. Due to the elongation of its nerve fiber. All right. This is also an example of neurobiotaxis. Right. I have given two examples. So now you try to memorize this thing. One composite diagram can be drawn from the midbrain. What are the nucleus in the midbrain? What are the parts of midbrain? Tell me, what are the parts of midbrain? You have read midbrain? No. if you do a cross section at the level of superior colliculus, you will be able to see the parts of the midbrain. That is, toward the dorsal side, there is the superior colliculus. If you are asked to show where is the superior colliculus, show me the superior colliculus and inferior colliculus. I have said that it will be on the dorsal side, not ventral side. Ventral side is the pyramid and olive, and the nerve fibers are coming out. There is pyramidal decussation. So if you are given the whole of the brain, hold it and show me where is the superior colliculus and inferior colliculus, and show me the pyramidal decussation or olive. So pyramidal decussation, olive, these are on the ventral aspect, and the colliculi are on the dorsal aspect. And above the superior colliculus, there is lying the pineal gland. You understood? All right. Now you see that up to the level of the aqueduct of Sylvius, that is the canal through the midbrain, this part is called tectum. And from that line, horizontal line, up to the substantia nigra, you will get the tegmentum. And in front of that, this is the basis pedunculi. This part is called basis pedunculi. This part is called the basis pedunculi, right? And you will see through the basis pedunculi, three types of fibers are coming. Three types of fibers are passing. That is the frontopontine holding 1/5 space, the temporopontine holding 1/5 space, and the pyramidal tract in between, that is holding the 2/5 space. Now you can see the position of the third nerve nucleus. It is just in front of the aqueduct of Sylvius, cavity of the aqueduct of Sylvius, there is the third nerve nucleus. All right. And on either side there will be spinal lemniscus, medial lemniscus, spinal lemniscus, and trigeminal lemniscus. All right, on this side. All right, I am not going to draw that, and I am not showing you what are the structures that passes through the lateral geniculate body or medial geniculate. Similarly, if I draw another picture through the inferior colliculus, you will see, oh, this one is the mesencephalic nucleus. This one is the mesencephalic nucleus. Similarly, if you see a cross section through the midbrain at the inferior colliculus level, you will be able to see the trochlear nucleus right at the same position as it is in the superior colliculus level. The thing is, the difference is that the trochlear nerve comes out towards the dorsal side after crossing its fiber. So trochlear nerve, suppose it is the trochlear nerve nucleus. So these fibers will come, in case of fourth nerve, these fibers will come after crossing through the dorsal part, and then it will wind round and will come in the frontal part. Got my point? At the inferior colliculus level, in such organization, you will find the fourth nerve nucleus, that is the trochlear nerve nucleus. All right. But the trochlear nerve nucleus crosses the midline, decussates, and comes out to the opposite side, and it is moving around the midbrain to come towards the ventral side of the midbrain. Got my point? What is the time? How much time is remaining? 7 minutes. All right. Now, in this way, you study the medullary nucleus, upper and lower level, pontine nucleus, upper and lower level, medullary nucleus, pontine nucleus, as well as revise the midbrain nuclei, alright, and other structure associated with it. Alright. Now, you will see in the medial geniculate body is related to the optic radiation. From the medial geniculate body, it is related to the optic radiation. And the lateral geniculate body is related to the vestibular, that is 8th nerve. It is related to the 8th nerve. Okay? So, via superior and inferior brachium. Alright, via superior brachium and inferior brachium. Now, let us recapitulate the nucleus you have seen in the medulla. Can one tell me? No, you couldn't read, isn't it? Because of your exam. So, it is useless to repeat it once again. You go on studying. I will draw a composite structure of midbrain nucleus, pontine nucleus and the medullary nucleus in single diagram. Alright. And if you read ever the neurology of the Samardev, alright, you will find there is a schematic diagram for the cranial nerve nucleus. It is very easy to memorize. Like that is the spinal tract of trigeminal goes up to the C2 segment of the spinal cord. At cranial accessory, there is spinal accessory, root of the nucleus of the spinal accessory goes up to the C5 segment. Like this, there is a just above and close to the oculomotor nucleus, there is the Edinger-Westphal nucleus. This is the very close to it. This is the Edinger-Westphal nucleus, EW nucleus. Alright. Where is the pretectal nucleus? Where are the other nuclei? I will draw in a composite diagram. But at this stage, you will not be able to memorize. Because you have to read Pons or the medulla or the midbrain structure. Just have a light go through this what I have told you today, then you will be able to understand that common structure. I will ask for another class for cranial nerve nuclei, though, alright, then you will be clearly understand which column or which motor nuclei is where. I have not shown you the lacrimatory nucleus, superior salivatory nucleus for the facial nerve and inferior salivatory nucleus for the glossopharyngeal nerve. These I haven't shown you. Alright. I will draw a composite diagram so that you can visualize which nucleus is where. I haven't showed you the abducent nucleus, isn't it? Abducent nerve comes from the where? In medulla, you will see fifth nerve. Fifth nerve occupies midbrain, pons and medulla, whole of the brainstem. Alright. Sixth nerve comes on upper part of pyramid on either side. Sixth nerve comes from upper part of pyramid on either side. Seventh nerve comes from the upper part of medulla. Eighth nerve comes through the gap in between the olive and inferior cerebellar peduncle. Eighth nerve comes in between the gap between the olive and the inferior cerebellar peduncle. Ninth nerve, 10th and 11th nerve comes between the 9th, 10th, 11th comes between the olive and inferior cerebellar peduncle. And the vestibulocochlear nerve on the cochlear nerve and inferior vestibular nucleus comes close to the peduncle. Alright. And 9th, 10th, 11th nerve comes through the gap between the olive and the inferior cerebellar peduncle. Right. And the 12th nerve comes to the lower part of the pyramid. 12th nerve comes from the lower part of the pyramid just below the 9th, 10th, 11th 12th one. All right. Now, I know in a stage you will not be able to memorize all those things. So you need another class so that I can draw the composite structure. All right. Thank you all for lending your ears for me. Thank you.